Hello and welcome to this UniTaster On Demand event today. My name is John Sheik. I'm here from UniTasterDays and I'll be hosting the event, which really means I'm just going to be introducing our speaker. Today, we're going to be looking at web design and user experience, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Derren from Manchester Metropolitan University. Derren is a lecturer and he's going to provide a guide to four main things: what to expect on a web design and user experience course, why to consider it, application tips and careers. And with that, Derren, I'll pass things over to you, please.
Okay, hello. Yes, my name's Derren Wilson. I'm a senior lecturer in web design and front-end development. I've been teaching web for about 4 years now. Before that, I was a web designer and front-end developer. I'm based at the School of Digital Arts at Manchester Metropolitan University. And I'm going to talk a bit about why web and user experience is an interesting degree and career pathway to follow. So as John said, I've got 4 topics to cover: why consider this area, what to expect from a web and user experience course, a few application tips, and an idea of the current sort of careers you could go into once you've studied a web and user experience course. So why consider studying web and user experience? Here's a few things that I thought of as I was considering this question. I think if you want to make a difference to people's lives, because we've seen over the last 18 months how important it is that the things that we do online make sense, they're accessible, they're usable, they help us do the jobs that we want to do. So things that are happening online are sometimes just as important as the things that happen in what we would call real life. And the two things are kind of, merging together somewhat. If you want to be continually challenged, because think of the changes that have happened with the devices that we use in the last 5 years. Try and think of how devices will be different in 10 years' time. For web and user experience professionals, their life is a life of constant change of, oh, look, here's a new thing that we have to figure out how to design for. Here's a new piece of technology that we have to understand. So this is an area, if you're curious, if you're interested in the new things that are coming and what they can do and how they can make people's lives better, then this is somewhere where you'll be continually challenged. Another thing, if you're interested in this area, we have to think outside of ourselves. We have to make designs that work for others. We have to think about our impact on the world. So we have to think about, okay, we want to design something that looks beautiful, but we also need to design something that everybody can use. We need to think about people who might not be able to see the screen, who might be using a screen reader. We have to make sure that the things that we create work for everybody that wants to use them. And day to day, as somebody working in the field of web and user experience, you'll need to collaborate and create together. It won't just be something where you'll be working on your own. You'll be working with teams of people. You'll be trying to create alongside others, and you'll be trying to work with others to create the kind of applications and websites that meet business goals, but also meet the user's goals as well and allow them to do the things that they want to do. Here's an example of that. This doesn't look like the most exciting, there's no explosions going on this page, and there's no kind of complex graphic design. But in terms of the importance of this website, pretty much any way that you can interact with the UK government happens through this website. So anything that you want to do, get your driving license, renew your passport, all of those different tasks take place through this website. So we've got researchers who are researching what kind of words people are looking for when they go onto this website. We've got designers trying to make sure that this is clear and consistent communication. We've got people who actually build the website. Their job is to make sure that this works on whatever device somebody comes along with to view the website. And we've got researchers who make sure that this website is doing its job, that people can find the information that they want to, as new information and new services are added, that they work well for everyone. And you can kind of see that here. The same website needs to be accessible and usable on all of these different devices, and devices that come along as we kind of, continue to develop the things that attach to the internet. So we were kind of looking at things with screens before. This thing doesn't even have a screen. So how do you interact with, how do you actually, make a service that's useful and relevant if people are just talking to a device rather than interacting with it through a screen. So, even though you might think of yourself as a visual designer, sometimes you might have to kind of go into new areas. You might have to quickly research and identify ways in which the skills that you already have, you can reuse them in a different context. So you're constantly learning, you're constantly, trying to figure out how the digital is going to evolve and change to meet the needs of the people that are using your services. And here's another example of that. I've gone back in time to the government website in 2012 and the government website in 2021, and we can kind of see the effect of this thing that I was talking about, the way that the web constantly changes. In 10 years, you can see the design has completely changed, the kind of services that are available have completely changed, and everything about this is kind of in a constant process of renewal and change. And the skills that you have as a web designer, the skills you have as a user experience researcher or user experience designer, they will have to continually change and update and grow as you kind of work professionally and learn about this very wide area of human activity. What to expect from a web and user experience course? What sort of things should you be looking for when you're considering different courses in this area? You should expect teaching that helps you learn how to communicate with others. And that's obviously visually in terms of opening some kind of software program and creating a user interface. But at the same time, you need to be able to convince and communicate with others to make sure that they understand the design and the solution that you're proposing to the particular business problems or the problems that your users are having in using their app or getting the task done that they need to do. So it's really important that as part of your course, you can take part in presentations or work with others to make sure that you build the skills that you can communicate visually, in writing, and verbally as well. It's also really important that your course covers things like research skills. By researching, you can understand what your audience is thinking. You can send out a survey or go and talk to people, and you can tease out the important themes that are going to help you figure out how to build that app properly, how to build that feature that everybody needs. They can't quite they can't quite kind of figure out themselves, but you as a researcher, as a designer, you can kind of get behind what people are actually saying and figure out what it is that they want built for them so that they can do what it is they need to do. And finally, obviously, the more understanding you have of how digital products are built, so an understanding of the code that makes up a digital product, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all of those languages, you don't necessarily have to be an expert at those, but obviously the more you know about the actual, the things that make up the products that you're working with, that you're designing, the better understanding you're going to have of what's possible, and the better you're going to be able to communicate with those others that are actually going to be building the app if you're not actually responsible for that. So here's an example of that. So you might be thinking, well, okay, I'm going to be doing a course where I'm going to be sat in front of a computer all day. That's not necessarily the case. What you might start off doing is actually sketching on a piece of paper, because that way you can create 400 different ideas as quickly as you can sketch them. You don't have to worry about opening up Photoshop and clicking here and clicking there. So when we talk about communicating, it's not just sitting in front of a computer. It's playing around with stuff, it's sketching, it's trying to get an idea that you think is really strong before you go into things like Figma, which is this computer program here, a way of kind of, making something go from a sketch to something that you can play around with and something you can work with and something you can demo on a computer so that you can get buy-in from other people. So you can sketch, you can use computer programs, you can write emails, you can write persuasive content that will help people understand what it is that you're trying to create, and that you can kind of communicate the business reasons for building an app or creating a product in a certain way. And here's another example. Here is some research. How is this research? Well, what you can see here on the left-hand side is a thing called a heat map. So a heat map shows where people are clicking. It shows where people are looking. So what you need to do with your research skills here is understand, okay, I've got some content. I know where people are looking. Is that really where I want them to look? Are they looking at the right information? Are they understanding what this page is about? Are they getting lost? Are they kind of falling off the path that we've created for them? On the right-hand side, you can see a Google Analytics graph there as well. So you might need to interpret that to figure out, okay, are people actually taking the right journey through our website? Are they clicking on the thing that we want them to click on? Are people, able to complete the task that we want them to do, whether that's buy something or sign up for something? So, all the data that we can collect from a website, that's something that you need to analyze in order to make sure you're building the right thing, in order to make sure that your ideas about how this product should work for your users, whether that's actually working properly or not. And here's an example of coding. So we've got some HTML code, we've got some CSS code, and then we've got the output right at the bottom as well. So the more that you can kind of read this code, understand how it's actually going to output, understand, okay, this is a fast way of building something, but it's not going to be as modifiable, or this is the way that we kind of do things now because it works better on different sorts of devices. All of this kind of understanding of the things that make up an app will help you kind of understand how to, the decisions that you make as part of putting your ideas together and making something that finally exists on screen. Application tips. So what is it that we want when you apply to a web and user experience course? The most important thing, I think, is that we want to see your enthusiasm for the subject area. We want to see that you're curious about the web, about user experience, about design. We want to see the ways in which you've already started to think about, okay, I tried using this app, but it wasn't very good. Or, I tried learning how to write HTML and I actually got this far. I actually got a website up and online. So, we want to see that you're curious and that you like learning new things, because that's the way people are going to have to be when they're actually out and working in the field of web and user experience. They're going to have to be curious. They're going to have to be always learning. So we want to see your enthusiasm for this subject area when you apply. The other thing we want to see is the way that you think about the world and how you think the digital makes a difference. The good things that the digital provide, and sometimes the bad things that the digital might make happen, like cyberbullying, or the way that different platforms make it too easy for people to see the wrong kind of content, or block particular types of content. So we want you to kind of have a critical and an ethical standpoint on the digital, and think about, okay, if I'm going to work in the digital, what is it that I'm interested in? What sort of products am I going to create? Am I going to be thinking about making sure that the things that I work on are going to be actually useful and actually beneficial to the people who will actually use them? A careers overview. What sort of careers are available once you've completed a web and user experience course? So this is quite a complicated slide. So what I'll do is kind of talk about it from the top to the bottom. In the center there, we have the arrows: research, design, build, test, launch. And that's the way that most digital products tend to be built. We start off with researching, we kind of identify a need, then we design something that we think meets that need, then we build it, then we test it, then we launch it. And obviously, as you know, once a product is launched, you can collect all sorts of data about it, and all of that data will feed back into the research phase, and the whole thing starts all over again. Unlike a book or a magazine, a website is never finished, an app is never finished. As you well know, every time you kind of start up your phone, some app or other is updating. It's something that kind of is constantly under review and never quite gets finished. So what sort of jobs are there that's kind of related to that process? We have a project manager. So there's a lot of kind of management involved in making digital products. So project managers They answer questions like, are we building the right thing? Is everybody working on this app going to be finished on time? Do people have what they need? You know, the project manager is the person that kind of organizes everybody else. They obviously know a fair bit about how apps and things or websites are put together, but their main role is to kind of make sure that other people are creating the things that are needed for the overall project to be a success. If we go down to the bottom half of the screen, we kind of start off in the research phase with user experience researchers, user experience designers, and these might be people who never actually touch an actual piece of HTML code or app code. These are people that find out what sort of tasks do people want to do? What sort of problems do people have that we can solve with technology? How does the website make itself nice and obvious? How does it have the right label so that people know what to click on? So the people that are doing user experience research and user experience design, they might also be interested in psychology, anthropology. They're interested in how to research, how to interview people. They're constantly learning about new techniques. So those are two specific roles. The user experience researcher, right at the beginning, what sort of thing are we going to build? User experience designer, if we build something like this, it should answer the problems that the user experience researcher has uncovered. What the user experience designer has kind of put together then gets passed to the next group of people for the build, design, test, launch phase. The web designer who kind of adds that layer of branding on top. The front-end developer, the person that actually builds the code that makes the website or possibly the app work. Other people like JavaScript developers, back-end coders, they connect the app or the website to databases and other kind of services that holds information that's required for the website or the app to work. And then the tester who makes sure you can't buy -2 pairs of shoes, make sure that everything's working as expected so that you don't run into any massive problems when the site is launched to all these people that actually want to use it. So these are people who are interested in design, the history of design. These are people that are interested in code and coding techniques. Again, they need to research because design and code doesn't stand still. It's always changing. It's always evolving. These are people who have to collaborate because if the web designer designs something the front-end developer can't build or the JavaScript developer can't build, then their work really isn't very useful. And they're constantly learning about new ideas, as is everyone else. So within the sort of web and user experience world, it's not that one person builds a website from start to finish anymore. There are more and more specific roles involved in the process of starting, building, creating a website. And as we all know, we're taking more and more of our lives online. So the things that we have to build have to work well for everybody. And that's important. Not everyone making a website needs to be an expert coder. And apps tend to be made out of different codes to websites. So it's really useful if you've decided you want to be an app developer to make sure any courses that you're interested in actually cover app coding rather than or in addition to website coding as well. But it's really important that everybody needs to be able to communicate with others. So, if you're a researcher, you need to be able to communicate with the people that are making the website. If you're a designer, you need to be able to build a mock-up that people can understand how this is actually going to work. If you're a front-end developer, you need to be able to communicate with your designer and the tester to make sure that everything you're building works correctly. And it's all about communicating. It's all about making sure that you're working together as part of a team to ensure that this product you're building for your end user actually works well and does what it's supposed to do. So, web design, it looks good. Web development, it doesn't break. People can actually use it. User experience, this thing works well. As soon as somebody comes onto the app or comes onto the website, they understand what it is that they need to do. They understand, okay, this is how this works. It works the same as this other website that I've been on. And I can do what I need to do. I don't have to spend 10 minutes figuring out what this is about. So by the time you've completed a web design and user experience course, you should have the skills to build a website that looks good, but also works well. We're aiming for all to tick all three of these boxes. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that was a useful introduction to the world of web and user experience.